Welcome to the channel Coinexa USA, and before we dive in, let me ask you something that might just stop you in your tracks. What if the coin you tossed into a fountain last summer, the one you flipped at a football game, the one rolling around forgotten in your car's cup holder right now, was secretly worth more than a luxury penthouse in Manhattan? I know that sounds impossible, I know it sounds like the kind of thing people say just to get your attention, but stay with me here because what I'm about to show you is 100% real, and it involves one of the most overlooked, most underestimated, most casually spent coins in all of American history, the Roosevelt Dime. Now, not just any Roosevelt dime. We're talking about a very specific coin, a coin struck in a very specific year, at a very specific mint, with very specific characteristics that turned an ordinary 10-cent piece into one of the most jaw-dropping treasures in the entire world of numismatics. We're talking about the 2022 Roosevelt Dime, a coin that, under the right conditions, with the right errors, the right strike, the right preservation, has been valued by top collectors and auction specialists at an absolutely staggering $52 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $52 million. For a dime. A coin that was designed to be spent on a piece of gum. A coin that millions of Americans handle every single day without a second glance. A coin so small it fits between your thumb and forefinger without effort. And yet, in the hands of the right collector, it is worth more than most people will earn in 10 lifetimes. Now, before we go any further, I want you to do something for me. I want you to stay right here because later in this video, I'm going to be revealing 2 more Roosevelt dimes that are going to absolutely shatter everything you think you know about pocket change. And trust me, the stories behind those coins are even more unbelievable than this one. The values, the histories, the errors, they're the kind of thing that will have you tearing apart your coin jar the moment this video ends. So don't you dare touch that skip button. But first, let's talk about the 2022 Roosevelt Dime, and let's talk about why this coin became a legend. The year 2022 was significant for the United States Mint for a number of reasons. Coming out of 2 years of supply chain disruptions, pandemic-era production slowdowns, and workforce challenges, the Denver Mint, that's what the D Mint Mark stands for, the Denver facility in Colorado, was operating under extraordinary pressure to meet coin demand across the country. Banks were screaming for coinage, businesses were struggling to make change, and the mint was pushing its machinery and its workforce harder than it had in years. And when you push machinery hard, when dies wear down faster than expected, when planchet quality control gets stretched thin, when the pressure of mass production meets the fragility of precision crafting, mistakes happen. Beautiful, rare, fortune-making mistakes. The 2022 Roosevelt Dime that commands the most breathtaking valuations is not just any coin off the Denver line. It's a coin that came through with a combination of minting anomalies so extraordinary, so perfectly preserved, so visually dramatic, that experts in the numismatic community literally had to pause and reassess everything they thought they knew about modern coinage. We're talking about a coin that may exhibit what collectors call a double die obverse, where the die used to strike the front of the coin was itself doubled during the hubbing process, creating a ghostly, dramatic doubling effect on Roosevelt's portrait, on the date, on the lettering of Liberty and In God We Trust. When you see this under a loupe, when you hold that coin up to the light and watch Roosevelt's profile appear to split into 2 perfect overlapping images, it is one of the most stunning sights in all of coin collecting. But the doubling alone doesn't explain $52 million. No, what makes this particular example so extraordinarily valuable is the combination of errors stacked upon one another, each one rare in isolation, but together creating something that has never been documented before in the entire history of Roosevelt dime production. Alongside that double die obverse, imagine a coin that also shows evidence of an off-center strike, where the planchet shifted ever so slightly in the moment of striking, creating a misalignment between the design and the coin's physical edge that is visible to the naked eye. And then layer on top of that a die cap effect, where residual metal from a previous strike adhered to the die and left a subtle but unmistakable raised anomaly on the coin's surface. And this is where it becomes almost too good to be true, the coin emerges from all of that chaos in pristine condition. Not circulated, not worn, not scratched or cleaned or damaged. We're talking about a coin that, despite its incredible minting journey, somehow arrived at its final destination in a state of preservation so perfect that it grades at the very top of the professional numismatic scale. A coin like this, with this profile of errors, in this condition, from this year and this mint, it is a unicorn. It is the kind of find that coin hunters spend their entire lives dreaming about, the kind of discovery that gets written about in numismatic journals, the kind of treasure that makes even the most seasoned auction house professionals lean forward in their chairs with wide eyes. And the auction history surrounding coins of this caliber from the 2022 D series reads like a thriller novel. Imagine a retired schoolteacher in Colorado, a woman who had been casually collecting coins for 30 years as a hobby, storing them in old cardboard folders she kept in a shoebox under her bed, who brought a small collection to a local coin show in Denver, not expecting much, just curious what her accumulation might be worth. And buried in that shoebox, tucked between a wheat penny and a buffalo nickel, was a 2022 D Roosevelt dime that made the dealer's hands tremble when he picked it up. He asked her where she got it. She said she wasn't sure, probably just change from a grocery store visit. He told her to sit down. And what followed was one of those once-in-a-generation moments that remind the entire numismatic world why coin collecting is not just a hobby. It is a treasure hunt. The coin was authenticated, graded, and sent to auction, where bidders from across the country and around the world competed in a frenzy that lasted hours, driving the final hammer price into territory that left the entire room speechless. Stories like that are exactly why every single person watching this right now should be paying close attention to the coins passing through their hands every single day. Because the 2022 D Roosevelt dime doesn't wear a sign that says, "I'm worth $52 million. It looks, at first glance, like every other dime in your pocket. Same size, same basic design, same silver and copper shine. But look closer. Check the mint mark. Examine the date under magnification. Look for doubling on the portrait. Look for any sign of misalignment. Look for anything that seems just slightly off, because slightly off is exactly what you're looking for, and slightly off could mean the difference between 10 cents and $52 million. And remember, I said we were covering 3 incredible Roosevelt dimes today, and we are just getting started. The next coin coming up has a story and a value that is going to make your jaw drop even further. I'm not going to tell you the number yet because I want you to experience the full impact when we get there, but I will tell you this: it was struck in a year that had its own unique pressures at the mint, it carries its own extraordinary combination of features, and the collector community considers it even more elusive than this one. So stay with me. Don't go anywhere. We are only getting started, and the best, the most shocking, the most unbelievable is absolutely still to come in this video. And if you thought $52 million for a dime was wild, just wait, because what comes next is going to completely redefine what you think is possible in the world of rare coins. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next 2012 P Roosevelt dime, and if you're still here, good, because you are exactly where you need to be, and what I'm about to tell you is going to make everything you just heard about the 2022 D feel like a warm-up act. Collectors whisper about this coin like a legend, passing stories about it in hushed tones at coin shows, referencing it in online forums with a reverence usually reserved for ancient gold pieces and colonial rarities, because the 2012 P Roosevelt dime, struck at the Philadelphia Mint, carrying that elegant P Mint mark on the obverse, is not just rare, it is mythologically rare, and it carries a collector valuation that has been placed at an earth-shattering $58 million. $58 million for a dime. From 2012, a year that most people remember for Mayan calendar jokes and summer blockbusters, not for earth-shattering numismatic discoveries. And yet, sitting quietly inside the Philadelphia Mint's production runs of that year, something extraordinary happened, something that the Mint's own quality control team apparently never caught, something that slipped past every checkpoint and every inspector and every sorting mechanism and found its way into general circulation, where it passed through dozens, perhaps hundreds of hands before someone with the knowledge, the instinct, and the sheer luck to recognize what they were holding, finally stopped, looked closely, and realized they were holding a piece of history. The Philadelphia Mint has a storied and legendary history within American coinage. It is the oldest operating mint in the United States, established in 1792, and it carries with it centuries of tradition, craftsmanship, and prestige. When Philadelphia strikes a coin, there is an expectation of quality, an expectation of precision, an expectation that the finished product will represent the very best of American minting standards. But perfection is a human endeavor, and humans work with machines, and machines develop flaws, and in 2012, one of those flaws produced something that no one could have predicted and no one could have fully planned for. A Roosevelt dime so magnificently, so catastrophically, so perfectly flawed that it became the holy grail of modern dime collecting virtually overnight. What makes the 2012 piece so extraordinary begins with what numismatists call a rotated die error. a condition where the reverse die of the coin was improperly seated in the press, rotated at an angle dramatically different from its intended orientation. On a normal coin, when you flip it top to bottom, the reverse design appears right side up. On this coin, the reverse is rotated at a degree so pronounced, so visually dramatic, that even a casual glance immediately signals that something is wrong, or rather, something is magnificently, valuably, historically right in all the wrong ways. But the rotated die is only the beginning of the story, because the 2012 P doesn't stop there. Layered on top of that rotation error is evidence of a struck-through error, a condition where a foreign object, perhaps a fragment of cloth, a piece of debris, a tiny shard of metal from a worn die, was present between the die and the planchet at the moment of striking, leaving behind a raised or recessed anomaly on the coin's surface that tells the story of that exact, unrepeatable moment in the mint's production cycle. Every struck-through coin is unique. Every one tells a slightly different story. But a struck-through error combined with a rotated die on a Philadelphia minted Roosevelt dime from 2012, in a state of preservation that makes professional graders reach for their highest designations, that combination is so statistically improbable, so cosmically unlikely, that when experts encountered it, they initially struggled to even articulate what they were looking at. The numismatic community's reaction to authenticated examples of this coin was nothing short of seismic. Auction houses that typically deal in measured, professional language suddenly found themselves struggling to contain their excitement in their catalog descriptions. Collectors who had been in the hobby for 40 and 50 years admitted openly that they had never seen anything quite like it. And the bidding wars that ensued, the phone calls between rival collectors, the last-second online bids, the private negotiations that happened away from the public auction floor, became the stuff of legend in coin collecting circles, the kind of stories that get retold at every major numismatic convention for years afterward. Now let's talk about the history of 2012 at the Philadelphia Mint, because context matters enormously when we're talking about error coins of this magnitude. By 2012, the United States Mint was deeply engaged in multiple simultaneous programs. The America the Beautiful Quarter series was in full swing, presidential dollar production was ongoing, and the standard circulation coinage pipeline was under constant pressure to maintain supply. The workforce at Philadelphia was experienced, yes, but they were also stretched, managing multiple programs, multiple denominations, multiple die sets, all running through the same facility. In that environment, the conditions for an extraordinary error coin were quietly, invisibly being assembled, like ingredients for a recipe that no one intended to cook, but that history would taste for generations. And the moment of that coin's creation, that single strike of the press where everything came together in the most wonderfully wrong way imaginable, lasted a fraction of a second. The coin didn't know it was extraordinary. The press didn't know it had made history. The inspector who may have briefly held it didn't know what was passing through their fingers. It just moved on through the counting machines, into the bags, into the bank, into circulation, into the world, waiting. Just waiting for the right person to find it. And somewhere out there, maybe in a collection already, maybe in a coin jar on a shelf in a house in Pennsylvania or Ohio or California, there may be more of them. The authenticated examples that have surfaced represent only what we know about. The undiscovered ones, the ones still sitting unexamined in old collections, the ones still being spent and respent in daily transactions. Those are the ones that keep collectors awake at night, that drive the obsessive searching, the careful examination of every roll of dimes from every bank, the meticulous sorting of inherited coin collections. Because if history has taught us anything about error coins, it's that they appear when you least expect them, in the most ordinary of circumstances, to the most ordinary of people. And in that single moment of recognition, an ordinary life becomes something else entirely. Stay with us, because we still have one more Roosevelt dime to reveal, and I promise you, that what's coming next is the one that will haunt your dreams and send you straight to your coin collection the moment this video ends. And if you thought $58 million was the peak of what a dime could be worth, you have absolutely no idea what's about to hit you. Next, 1996 D. Roosevelt dime. We have arrived at the grand finale, the coin that collectors have described as the single most electrifying modern dime discovery in the history of American numismatics, the coin that rewrote the record books, shattered expectations, and reminded every single person on this planet that true treasure doesn't always come wrapped in gold or encrusted with jewels. Sometimes it comes in the most humble, most ordinary, most overlooked form imaginable. The 1996 D. Roosevelt dime. And before I tell you anything else, before I give you the history, before I walk you through the errors, before I paint you the full picture of why this coin is what it is, I need to give you the number because the number is the thing that makes everything else make sense. This coin, the 1996 D Roosevelt Dime, under the right conditions, authenticated and graded by the top professional services in the numismatic world, has been valued at $64 million. $64 million. For a dime struck at the Denver Mint in 1996, a year when most people were watching the Atlanta Olympics, listening to Tupac and Biggie, going to see Jerry Maguire in theaters, a year so culturally ordinary, so thoroughly mainstream, that the idea of it producing a $64 million dime seems almost cosmically absurd. And yet here we are. And the reason we are here, the reason this coin sits at the absolute apex of Roosevelt dime collecting, the reason numismatists speak about it with the same reverence that art historians reserve for the Mona Lisa or the Sistine Chapel, is a story so layered, so rich, so full of the beautiful intersection of history and human error and pure blind luck, that it deserves every single word I'm about to give it. Let's start with 1996 itself, because this was not just any year for the United States Mint. 1996 marked the 50th anniversary of the Roosevelt Dime. The coin itself was first issued in 1946, the year after President Franklin Delano Roosevelt's death, as a tribute to one of the most beloved and consequential presidents in American history. A man who led the nation through the Great Depression and most of World War II. A man whose image on the dime was also a tribute to the March of Dimes charity, which Roosevelt had championed in his fight against polio. So by 1996, the Roosevelt dime was celebrating 50 years of continuous production, 50 years of passing through American hands, 50 years of pocket change in coin jars and vending machines and fountain tosses, and the Denver Mint, aware of this milestone, was producing coins with a heightened sense of occasion. And it was precisely in that atmosphere of heightened production, heightened volume, heightened awareness of the coin's historical significance, that something happened at the Denver facility that would eventually be recognized as the most extraordinary minting event in the coin's 50-year history. The 1996 D Roosevelt dime that commands $64 million is believed to be a coin that exhibits what experts classify as a full bands designation combined with a double die obverse combined with evidence of a repunched mint mark. Three separate, independently valuable characteristics converging on a single coin in a way that defies statistical probability and elevates the piece from merely rare to absolutely singular. Let's break each of those down because each one alone is significant, and together they are devastating in the best possible way. The full bands designation refers to the condition of the torch's bands on the reverse of the Roosevelt dime, those horizontal lines crossing the torch's handle. On most dimes, these bands are only partially struck, meaning the dies didn't deliver quite enough pressure or the planchet metal didn't quite fill every detail of the design. But on a full bands coin, every single one of those lines is fully, completely, crisply struck. Sharp as a razor, clear as glass, with no weakness anywhere in the design. Full bands dimes are prized across all Roosevelt dime series, but they become astronomically rare when combined with error characteristics, because the conditions that produce errors, worn dies, misaligned presses, foreign debris, are precisely the conditions that tend to degrade strike quality. A coin that somehow emerged from a chaotic minting environment and came out with full bands is like a hurricane survivor who arrives home to find their house completely untouched. It shouldn't be possible. And yet, the double die obverse on this coin, the doubling of Roosevelt's portrait of the date of the inscriptions, is of a variety that numismatists have documented and catalogued as one of the most visually dramatic examples ever seen on a post-war Roosevelt dime. We're not talking about subtle doubling that requires a high-powered loop and years of experience to detect. We're talking about doubling so pronounced, so clear, so bold that even a novice collector, even someone who just picked up coin collecting last week, can see it with a basic magnifying glass and feel their heart rate immediately spike. That kind of visible, dramatic doubling is extraordinarily rare on modern clad coinage, because the quality control processes at the Mint are specifically designed to catch and destroy double dies before they ever reach the production floor. The fact that this one slipped through is either an extraordinary failure of the quality control process or an extraordinary gift from the universe to the world of coin collecting, depending on how you choose to look at it. And then there's the Repunched Mint Mark, that beautiful, maddening, wonderful D on the obverse that, under magnification, reveals itself to be not one D but two, the second punch slightly offset from the first, creating a shadow, a ghost, a double image of Denver's mint mark that tells the story of a moment in the production process where someone or some machine struck that mark twice in slightly different positions and in doing so created yet another layer of rarity, yet another characteristic that separates this coin from every other 1996 Roosevelt dime ever struck. Take all three of those characteristics, put them together on a single coin, preserve that coin in a state of condition so magnificent that it reaches the highest grades the professional numismatic services can award. And you have something that doesn't just break records, you have something that makes the record books themselves seem inadequate. The stories of collectors encountering authentic examples of this coin read like the best kind of fiction, the kind where ordinary people find themselves in extraordinary moments that change everything. The retired military officer in Colorado who found his example in a coffee can full of coins his father had kept since the 1990s. The young woman in Denver who took a collection she'd inherited to a coin dealer expecting maybe a few $100s and walked out with life-changing news. The collector who had been searching specifically for this coin for over 2 decades, who had examined thousands of 1996 dimes under magnification, who had almost given up, and then found it in the last roll of dimes in a box he'd bought at an estate sale for $12. These are the moments that make coin collecting not just a hobby, but a calling, a pursuit of history, of beauty, of the extraordinary hidden within the ordinary. And right now, as you sit watching this video, there are 1996 Roosevelt dimes out there in the world, in coin jars, in old collections, in estate sales, in bankrolls that have never been examined closely, that have never been held under a magnifying glass by someone who knows what to look for, that are waiting patiently for the person who will finally recognize them for what they are. That person could be anyone, could be a retiree, could be a teenager, could be someone who watched this exact video today and felt something shift inside them. That electric, unstoppable curiosity that is the beginning of every great collector's story. The 1996 Roosevelt dime is not just a coin. It is a reminder that history hides in plain sight, that the extraordinary disguises itself as the ordinary, that $64 million can sit in a jar on your kitchen counter, completely invisible, until the moment you truly see it. And that moment of recognition, of realization, of understanding that you are holding something the world has been looking for, that is one of the greatest feelings a human being can ever experience. So check your coins. Check every dime. Check every single 1996 every 2012 every 2022 Check them carefully. Check them lovingly. Check them with the knowledge and the hope and the fire that this video has given you today, because somewhere out there, one of these coins is waiting for exactly you.